Order, order. We now come to questions. Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, Tanmanjeet Singh Dhesi.
Number 1, please, Mr Speaker.
Good morning again, Mr Speaker. 24 hours is a long time in politics. Since this is the last OPQs before we hand over to the people that we serve and await their decision, I just want to say thank you to all the team at DCMS and everybody who supported us as a ministerial team. And I want to wish luck to everybody whose lives are going to be changing. That includes members, of course, but importantly, the staff who support them and the residents they serve. And as I look at Sir David Amos's plaque during prayers, I also want to wish everybody a very safe campaign. With your permission, Mr Speaker, I shall answer questions 1 and 16 together. We are committed to supporting local media as a vital pillar of our local democracy. Our Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Bill will, among many other things, help rebalance the relationship between local publishers and online platforms. In addition, the Media Bill, which I hope will pass, includes measures to help radio provide high-quality local journalism, and we've also supported local press through tax reliefs and innovation funding.
Tanmanjeet Singh Dhesi.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Slough Observer, Slough Express, BBC Berkshire, Asian Star Radio and such local media outlets are the glue that binds and builds our Slough community, holding to account local councillors, MPs and officials, placing a local focus on national issues. But the Tories have neglected local news. In 2019, the Cairn Cost Review highlighted the serious challenges facing local journalism, but to this date, no significant action has been taken by the government. And this lack of support, coupled with low wages and job insecurity, are forcing talented journalists out of local news. So what steps have ministers taken to ensure that jobs in local journalism are viable?
Well, since we're doing some name checks, I would like to pay tribute to the Havering Daily, Time FM and the Romford Recorder. But I think the honourable gentleman must have missed the Digital Markets Bill. That was the key recommendation of the Cairn Cost Review, which identified the imbalanced relationship between publishers and dominant platforms, and we brought that to the House and it passed. So that is our main efforts to protect local journalism, but of course it's not our only efforts. We have business rates relief for local journalistic offices, we support the local democracy reporting scheme from the BBC, we have protected public notices income, we are looking at also at how we use government advertising spend, and we're speaking to the teams about what else we can do.
Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This feels like an appropriate moment to acknowledge that in Orkney and Shetland we are blessed with some very good quality local media. The Arcadian, the Shetland Times, Shetland News, SIBC and BBC Radio Orkney and Radio Shetland. If I've forgotten anyone, I'll doubtless suffer for it in the weeks to come. But, Mr Speaker, for communities like ours, a strong local media presence is a very important bulwark against the relentless centralisation of control of power and government in Edinburgh. And that's why we need to protect them. So, does the Minister agree that what we really need to see is a coherent strategy for all aspects of local media, including advertising, to ensure that local media outlets remain strong?
Well, I certainly agree, and we have been putting forward that strategy, but it's a very dynamic market. We're now seeing challenges to local reporting from AI, and we're looking at how we help protect some of the publications, because we agree that it's such an important part of our local democracy. And if anybody else wants to name-check their local media and bob on this question, then I should be happy to pay fulsome tribute to their journalists.
Foster.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I think the Minister guessed that I mentioned the Torbay Weekly, which was launched 4 years ago under its editor, Jim Parker, may be coming in this supplementary question. But on a more serious note, one of the things we've seen, one of the worrying trends, is the way national corporations will buy a historic local title, turn it weekly, run it into the ground, but even when they close it down, then refuse to release that title to be used perhaps by a local group that's trying to put together a multimedia platform to continue local accountability. What steps could the government take to resolve that?
Well, I thank him, and there is surely no greater publication in his constituency than the Torbay Weekly. And I should also say, I think this House has made clear in the course of this Parliament just how strongly it feels about BBC local radio services, and I would hope to see those protected in the next Parliament. But he's absolutely right about some of those challenges of publications being bought up. What we want to try and do is also support some of those micro sites, and we're looking at how we can use government advertising spend to try and help support them.
Logan.
Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of one-upmanship, I'd just like to announce that the Speaker doesn't read the Financial Times or listen to Radio 4. No, he reads the Bolton News and listens to Bolton FM. And we're very disappointed at the weekend because we lost to Oxford United. But speaking with Keith Harris this morning for Bolton FM, he wants assurances from the government that we'll do all we can to make sure that local radio provides that essential tool for democracy, gets the legal support that it needs, and also that government, both locally and nationally, can use those local platforms more to support them.
For a point of clarification, I do read the Chorley Guardian. Like your Evening Post, and I definitely would still be listening, as Peter Kay would say, to Chorley FM coming all over.
The Bolton News, the Bolton FM, the Chorley Guardian, we couldn't live without them. But he is absolutely right about the importance of local radio, and that's why I fought very much as Media Minister to make sure that we included provisions for local radio in the Media Bill, and I very much hope that that Media Bill will be passing through in Wash-Up.
Right, let us move to Matt Hancock.
Question number 2, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that my constituency of Pudsey will no longer exist after this election, this may be my final chance to say thank you to all of my constituents for the support that they have given me over the years, and particularly pay tribute to my parliamentary and constituency team who have helped me enormously over the last 14 years. It has been the privilege and the honour of my life, and I'm extremely grateful for it. In answer to the question, the government very much supports horse racing, not just as the second largest spectator sport, but as a major economic contributor, not just to the rural economy, but the economy more widely. We have been working extensively with industry to maintain its status as a world-renowned sport.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to also make my last contribution to this House, and can I thank you and all the staff of the House who've helped me enormously over many years. Thousands of questions answered from the dispatch box, hundreds asked from the backbenches, and pay tribute to the Minister, who has also been an exemplary representative of Pudsey and Minister. It is perhaps fitting that my final question is about horse racing, which is at the heart of the West Suffolk constituency, the heart of Newmarket, of course, and requires significant support in these difficult times. I know the Minister and the Secretary of State have been working incredibly hard to try to settle the latest levy negotiations. Can he assure me he will do everything he possibly can to use the last few days in which this Parliament is sitting to get that deal over the line and announced, because what we now want is the certainty to be able to take this great sport from strength to strength?
I think that's a valedictory speech, but come on in, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend has certainly been an advocate and a hard campaigner for horse racing, not just for his constituency, but for the wider sport. Significant progress has been made on increasing levy contributions on a voluntary basis, and a great deal of thanks must go to both the British Horse Racing Authority and the Betting and Gaming Council and DCMS officials for all of their efforts and engagement throughout this process. With an offer on the table, we urge both sides to agree on the terms of the deal that will see increased investment in the sport, allowing it to grow and secure its sustainability, and we will do everything we can to ensure that that is agreed.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister for that answer? Indeed, the last autumn, the last winter, the last spring has seen a deluge of rain like we've never seen. Many of us were either going to buy a boat or we're going to make one. But in relation to the horse racing industry, what assessment has been made on the impact that the last 12 months of increased rainfall and flooding has had on the horse industry and their existence and its clarity? Thank you.
Well, the honourable gentleman raises a really important point, and I know that colleagues in both Sport England and in DEFRA have been looking at this issue, particularly as it has affected not just horse racing, but has affected other pitches like rugby and football and so on. So I'll have some further details which I'll be happy to write to him about the conclusions of that.
Right, Paul Hull.
Question 3, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Mr Speaker, I too would just like to begin as this session comes to an end by thanking you for everything that you've done and the support that you've given me as a Minister over the last 6 years. I'd like to thank the DCMS, my officials, for all the work that they have done, the special advisors who have been superb, my hard-working, effective ministerial team, we work as a team, and my engagement with the Shadow Secretary of State. Mr Speaker, it's really important that we support our young people, and that is why we have a programme to build or refurbish up to 300 youth facilities, supporting 45,000 young people each year. To date, £250 million has been awarded to 227 organisations to build, renovate and expand youth provision.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And yes, like others, I'd really like to thank everybody that's helped us in my first term in this place. Hope to come back for another one with a different name. But on the substantive, on Saturday the 11th of May, I went to Middleton St George Scout Hall to join the local Lord Lieutenant and Deputy Mayor as we opened their new Scout Hall with over £350,000 from the Conservative Government's Youth Investment Fund. Could the Minister just remind us all of how important these community groups are, like the Scouts, like the brass bands, like all the different things that we see around our communities? And maybe just remind us all of the breadth and scope of support that this Conservative Government has given to organisations like those.
Well, I thank my honourable friend, who is a huge campaigner for his area. We have given 300,000 opportunities to young people through our National Youth Guarantee. Not just the youth clubs that I just mentioned, but we've given 12,000 disadvantaged young people an opportunity to have adventures away from home. We've made 30,000 places for Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme, and we've created 250 new uniformed youth groups.
Davis Jones.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As a working class girl from Pontypridd, it was Labour government funding that enabled me to access specialist music lessons. They enabled me to fall in love with opera, and they enabled me to take part in a specialist workshop with the Welsh National Opera. Now, sadly, we all know what is happening with the WNO. So what steps is the Secretary of State taking to safeguard our world-class WNO and the jobs and the opportunities that they provide for young people and everyone across Wales and the South West?
I'm really delighted to have an opportunity to answer this question about funding in Wales. Because this government, notwithstanding that arts is devolved to Wales, this government has given £4 million through the Arts Council to the Welsh National Opera. The same amount that the Welsh Government has given, notwithstanding that arts is devolved. So overall, and further, the Arts Council has given transition funding. In fact, the Welsh National Opera has been in the top 10% of organisations that has been funded. The position is that the Labour government in Wales has reduced its funding to the Arts Council in Wales by 10%, called out by those in Wales. So I'm very grateful for the honourable member for giving me the opportunity to point that out.
Shelter Secretary of State, thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. But, Mr Speaker, can she or anyone else on the Tory benches honestly tell the young people in Bristol and across the UK that they're better off after 14 years of Conservative failures on youth services, failures on education and failures on skills development than they would be under a government led by Keir Starmer and a changed Labour Party?
Absolutely Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. This government has supported young people in its education, outstanding schools, 80% of people getting an outstanding education, up in the PISA tables for education. In terms of youth, as I said, 300,000 young people given opportunities. And in the creative industries, which the honourable member failed to mention, up on employment, double the number of people employed, double the number of revenues. They voted every single time against our creative industries tax relief.
Any more?
Question number 4, please.
Mr. Speaker, with permission, I will answer questions 4 and 7 together. We have a number of individual separate initiatives to support the participation of women and girls in sport. We've got the National Physical Activity Task Force across government working to ensure that women and girls get more active. We've established the Board of Women's Sport to identify challenges and opportunities across women's sport. And we're also fully supporting Karen Carney's recommendations to lift standards and deliver sustainable growth for women's football.
Any more?
Mr. Speaker, as you know, football is a great sport and it's one that both boys and girls can participate in. Walsall Football Club Foundation do fantastic work to encourage and enthuse schools in my constituency to participate with initiatives such as Let Girls Play. Does my right honourable friend agree with me? This is exactly what we need to be doing to encourage more grassroots sport for girls. But will she also join me in congratulating the boys team at Cooper and Jordan School, who won the Utility Football Kids Club final at Wembley recently?
Well, I'd be absolutely delighted to congratulate the boys team and commend all the work that's being done to support in local schools to encourage girls to get more involved in sport. And that's why we as a government, we're committed to equal access to PE and sport in schools for girls to be able to participate in whatever sport they like. If they want to do cricket or football or rugby, they should be absolutely entitled to do so. And that's why the Department for Education has published guidance on how to deliver a minimum of 2 hours of quality PE a week, alongside funding, Mr. Speaker, over £600 million worth of funding for primary PE and sport through the Sport Premium.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is no greater exemplar in encouraging women and girls into sport than the motorsport sector. From Susie Wolf's F1 Academy and Discover Your Drive to Motorsport UK's Girls on Track scheme, discovering British talent like Abby Pulling, who won both races in Miami in the F1 Academy, and then, the very next weekend, won the British F4 race here in the UK. Before we get on to the engineering roles and the design roles. So will my right honourable friend agree with me that motorsport shows the way that other sports can follow?
I do absolutely agree with my honourable friend about the huge value in motorsport. I congratulate Motorsport on their Girls on Track scheme, which, as he says, is getting more girls and women into the sport. I'd just like to highlight and re-emphasise the point he made. Motorsport isn't just about the sport itself. It is a huge powerhouse for R&D, building and supporting innovation.
Tony Antoniazzi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make reference to my recent appointment to the board of Llanelli Scarlets. I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the shadow front bench and also to the front bench, the government, for the work that goes on cross-party in this House, because women and girls sport is really important. And I would like to ask the Secretary of State to join me and to celebrate the activity of girls and women in sport, and whoever is in government next, that we continue to work cross-party to ensure that the rights of all women and girls are upheld in sport.
Couldn't agree with my honourable and the honourable member more. And we do quite a lot in this House cross-party. That is important work. I must say, in this role, one of the things that I've been most proud to be involved in is supporting the women's football team and women in sport. It was phenomenal to go to Australia to see the women's team almost win the World Cup, and the work that the Lionesses and former Lionesses have done to spotlight that has been phenomenal. We're at a very exciting point in women's football, and we, the government, are continuing to support them in so many different ways.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State talks a good talk, but on her watch, the gender activity gap is wider than ever. 22% fewer girls than boys take part in team sport. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that it is only under Labour, the party of equality, that women and girls in Bristol and beyond will finally have equal access to sport?
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, I absolutely disagree with the statement because for a number of years now, the Conservative government has been supporting women and girls get into sport with the significant campaign, the I Will campaign, which gets more women and girls in sport, the work that's been done cross-departmentally with the Department for Education, ensuring that young women, young girls have equal access in school. And in fact, year on year, we've seen those numbers of participation in sport improve. And we've also set up the National Activity Task Force with a specific aim of getting 1 million more women involved in activity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Question number 5.
I thank my honourable friend, the honourable member for her question. One of my colleagues has just said to me that she is stepping down, so I'd just like to pay tribute to her for the representation she has given to the good people of Halifax. DCMS is responsible for listing buildings of special architectural or historic interest, giving them enhanced protection. DCMS and its arm's-length bodies also provide significant financial support for heritage buildings, including through Historic England's £95 million High Street Heritage Action Zone programme.
I'm grateful to the Minister and can I thank her for her kind words. Can I just start by paying tribute to Halifax Civic Trust, who do so much great work in my constituency. We've got some amazing heritage buildings, not least the magnificent Peace Hall, but we've also got others that developers have bought and sat on, refused to invest in, engage or release to other interested parties. Can I ask the Minister what else we might be able to do to force them to engage and release those buildings if they're not going to invest?
Well, I spoke to my noble friend, the Heritage Minister, in preparation for this question, and in doing so, got to know a bit more about Peace Hall, which is an absolutely fantastic heritage site in her constituency, and I commend the work of all local activists who have gone to protect that building and bring it into public use. It's a wonderful example of an 18th century northern cloth hall that has now got a modern purpose, and we're very grateful for the work that's gone into it. But we also, as you may be aware, have the Cultural Development Fund, which has allowed communities across the country to retain important public buildings with heritage value and to repurpose them and breathe life into the communities that most need them.
Mr. Speaker, on the subject of heritage buildings, may I add my own thanks to yours, to the Clerk of Legislation, Liam Lawrence-Smith, who really is an institution in this place. He was for many years a close colleague of my late father-in-law, Stephen Panton, who served this House as a clerk for 33 years. And Mr. Lawrence-Smith has done a great deal for many of us in this House and has been personally enormously helpful to me. And while I'm still in order and on the subject of heritage buildings, does the Minister agree that for many people in South Norfolk, the Dis Express feels like a heritage building and should be protected and celebrated accordingly?
Well, he is absolutely right to highlight the Dis Express. I presume that is a heritage railway. Oh, sorry. It's a local newspaper. I do apologise. Well, maybe it's not too risky to say that I would consider doing so, but I appreciate him highlighting that wonderful organisation within his own constituency. Thank you very much.
Rachel McClay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I must put on record my thanks to the... Question 6, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I will answer questions 6 and 13 together. Responding to concerns that we heard from the sector, in 2023-24, the Government awarded over £60 million to address cost pressures facing public swimming pools and improve energy efficiency in the long term.
Rachel McLean.
That every day is a learning day in Parliament. But I must put on record my thanks to the Minister's Department for the considerable sum of funding that's been made available to Redditch, £382,000 to level up swimming pool and leisure facilities in my constituency. And that comes on the back of £16.5 million worth of town deal funding and, of course, £5 million of culture funding as well. So, does she agree that some significant representations have resulted in a meaningful commitment to level up Redditch within this Parliament? And, of course, mental health and well-being is a key part of that. Does she agree?
Well, my sex has obviously changed, but I certainly agree with my honourable friend, and I want to pay tribute to her for the enormous campaigning she's done on behalf of her constituency in Redditch in securing that significant investment. I absolutely agree that getting people active is vital to improving their physical and mental health, and that's exactly why we are investing this historic amount of money in grassroots facilities, but also have published the new strategy Get Active, which is setting our ambition of getting 3.5 million more people active by 2030.
Right, Rob Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Aquavale Swimming and Fitness Centre in Aylesbury has a prime location right in the heart of town, but I'm sorry to say it is starting to show its age. So the announcement of £240,000 from this Conservative government to improve the facilities there is absolutely superb news. Can my right honourable friend highlight for Aylesbury residents the benefit that this investment will now bring to my constituents?
Well, again, can I congratulate my honourable friend for campaigning hard on behalf of his constituency and securing that £240,000 for a leisure centre that was feeling its age. I think I know how it feels. But we know how important pools are for our communities, and that's why we're providing this funding. What will happen there is that installation of panels will improve energy efficiency and will contribute to significant savings, securing that leisure centre for the people of Aylesbury to stay fit and healthy.
We now go to Topicals, Rachel McLean.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Topical question 5, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to reiterate my thanks to the Honourable Member for Hornchurch and Upminster and the Honourable Member for Pudsey and Lord Parkinson for the significant support that they have given me throughout my time as Secretary of State. DCMS is a team, and without their phenomenal work we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we have over the course of the last 18 months or so. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. Mr. Speaker, over the last 14 years, the Conservative Party in government has helped transform the creative industries. 1 million new jobs since 2010, doubling the economic value of the creative industries to over £124 billion in 2022, powered by investment and tax breaks that the members opposite voted against every single time. Unlike the Labour Party, we've set out a plan to go further, to grow the creative industries by an additional £50 billion and add another 1 million extra jobs by 2030. And, Mr. Speaker, that is the choice voters will face in July. A clear, Conservative plan for growth, or back to square one with Labour. Mr. Speaker, I was very. The Honourable Member for Redditch is a huge campaigner. She was awarded £5 million at the spring budget to support the development of culture projects in that area for her area, and she will know that it's a matter for each council to identify the most suitable projects to be funded in their area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Secretary of State for all her work with my team in Redditch. Can she confirm that despite the tight timelines, we can make sure that this funding of £5 million, which is hugely valued, is able to be made use of by as many local groups as possible before we break for the general election?
Well, as the honourable member will know, that is a matter for the local council, and I'm sure she will work very closely with them to ensure that that funding will be distributed appropriately.
Minister Chris Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I hope it's in order for me, first of all, to thank all the ministerial team for where they have been absolutely courteous to us and where we've been able to work together on matters. I'd particularly like to pay tribute to the member for Pudsey, who is not only a gent but a champ. However, 2 music venues closing every week, British artists prevented from touring in Europe, the UK art market falling from 2nd to 3rd in the world, A-level music students down by 45%, museums and galleries struggling with the cost of living, ballerinas told to retrain, theatre and opera touring slashed, an apprenticeship levy that doesn't work for the creative industries. Was this all part of the plan? Or, in the words of RuPaul, isn't it time for this appalling government to sashay away?
Mr. Speaker, tax reliefs for every subsector of the creative industries, whether that's film, studios, independent film, whether it's grassroots support. We have supported the creative industries at every single level. We have a plan from first day of primary school to the last day of work. That is what we are doing for our sectors.
Foster.
Mr. Speaker, the reputation of Torbay's iconic tourism sector has been badly hit by recent events relating to local water supplies. What discussions has the Minister had with colleagues in DEFRA about ensuring support is provided and paid for by South West Water to compensate for this?
Well, I know that my honourable friend for Keighley, whom I met earlier this week, is very engaged in this issue, and our stakeholders in the South West and Visit England are looking into any necessary information they can give to tourists. They will continue to keep that under review, but I empathise deeply with local businesses and residents, and particularly tourism businesses, and I just think it's important to say that the majority of those businesses in Brixton were not affected by this outbreak. It's a wonderful place to go and visit. They have a fantastic local MP, and I'm sure that he will provide everybody who visits the region a very warm welcome.
SNP spokesperson Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank our Shadow Culture Secretary? I'm proud of the work that he has done, and I'm proud of the work that I've been able to do alongside him on behalf of the SNP and the people of Scotland. Can I also just briefly echo your comments about Liam Lawrence Smith? The number of times that I have gone to Liam and said, I want to get up to some mischief, can you help me? And I have really appreciated all of the advice that he has given me over time. I'd just like to ask the Secretary of State, will the media bill be part of Wash Up? Because a number of organisations, including STV, have contacted me this morning asking for it to be.
That is certainly what I am pressing for, and very grateful for her support to ensure that that happens.
Steve Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the Olympics impending happening in Paris in the forthcoming months, what work is the Minister doing to ensure that the residents of Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and indeed across the whole country, get to support GB as passionately as if the Games were being held on our own shores?
Well, we're all looking forward to the Olympics, and good luck to Team GB. UK Sport has invested £382 million of exchequer and lottery funding for the Paris Olympics, but we also want to make sure with the Changemaker programme initiative that when athletes come back here on their return from the Paris Games, they also give back to their communities exactly like his.
We now come to Shadow Minister Barbara Keeley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a result of the Conservative government's Brexit deal, The Guardian reports that the costs of touring to the EU are now so high that 74% fewer UK bands are now touring there. Yep. The UK touring scene is all the more valuable for musicians and bands now, but opportunities to perform here are being lost as music venues and festivals are forced to close due to rocketing operational costs. Does the Secretary of State see just how the government has failed the music industry? Yeah. Isn't it time for a Labour government which will support our excellent musicians, our venues and our festivals?
Well, I appreciate her raising the concerns of the music industry because we want to support them very much. And when I first joined the department, they were very vocal about some of the challenges of touring, and we methodically worked through those challenges to make sure that some of those were eased. We've also supported grassroots venues, but I often wonder, as Labour members raise these points in the Chamber, they didn't have an ulterior motive. And what I'm really keen to see is whether they will be putting in their own local manifestos their desire to rejoin the European Union.
Hello.
Mr. Speaker, In my constituency, I've got many local grassroots football teams, including Newton Aycliffe, who've just achieved the highest league position in their history, and Ferryhill Youth, who are looking at disability access. Both have been well supported by Newton News and the chapter, respectively. But does the Minister agree with me how critical it is that money flows down the football pyramid, and would you congratulate Newton Aycliffe on their achievements and commend the local papers for their backing?
Well, can I say to my honourable friend that I'd like to commend Newton Aycliffe and Ferryhill Youth Football Clubs for their recent successes, both off and on the pitch. And it's great to hear that my honourable friend has been engaging with people like the Football Foundation, for example, because it really does help us as MPs support our constituents. And absolutely, I will echo his words.
Helen Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The legacy of 14 years of Conservative government is a 73% real terms cut in local authority expenditure on youth services since 2010. Will the Secretary of State admit just how profoundly the Tories have failed our young people? And will she acknowledge that it is only a Labour government that can restore hope and opportunity for young people across this country?
In addition to the £500 million in the National Youth Guarantee, which is supporting young people across the country, we are approaching youth in a cross-departmental way, whether that's the £200 million that the Home Office has to support young people not going down a life of crime, whether it's a similar amount of funding from the MOJ to ensure that that funding comes through, whether it's the £64 billion that we give to local councils. We're supporting young people at every stage of their life.
Elizabeth.
Will the Minister for Sport join me in congratulating Kettering resident Kyron Wilson on becoming the new World Snooker Champion? And will the Minister join me in hoping that Kyron's success will encourage people in Kettering and across the country in taking up snooker?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right to pay tribute and recognise the success of Kyron Wilson. I know that the people of Kettering must be incredibly proud of him, and I do hope that he will absolutely inspire more people to take up snooker. It is an important sport in this country, and I know that my honourable friend has been an advocate of supporting the sport in the many conversations we've had outside of this chamber.
Deirdre Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What steps will the government take to ensure robust regulation of the special impartiality rules that apply during the election period? It's reference to my substantive about the enforcement of the Broadcasting Code, just to make sure that multi-party democracy is respected, devolution isn't treated as a sideshow, and the people of Scotland get an accurate picture of public policy that applies to them so they're not disinformed and disenfranchised.
Well, the honourable member will know that all broadcasters are regulated by Ofcom, and I'm sure that all broadcasters will be aware of the importance of impartiality.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. Cottgrave Football Club do a fantastic job of providing access to football for the local community, but they are limited by their current facilities and need funding from Sport England for a 4G all-weather pitch. To secure this funding, they must qualify as a Level 3 club, with facilities for disabled football and a plan to grow women's football. Now, they would love to do this, but they can't do that without the 4G pitch. So can the Minister help us resolve this chicken and egg situation so that Cottgrave Football Club can secure the funding they need and provide access to football for even more people?
Well, my honourable friend has raised this with me in the past, and I've spoken to my officials who said that they'd encourage her to continue to liaise with the Football Foundation to understand what might indeed be possible. So I suggest she passes that on. I know, Mr. Speaker, that she is a really successful and staunch campaigner for her local area. I've worked with her on a number of campaigns, and I have every faith in her success in this particular campaign.
Mr. Speaker, may I, at my voice, thanks for Liam Lawrence Smith, who was the first clerk that worked for me when I was chair of the Education Select Committee. He became a great friend and mentor, and this House will miss him dreadfully. Mr. Speaker, can I then ask the Secretary of State, is there any special money for those communities that have a rich tradition of music and the arts? Huddersfield, my constituency, has Huddersfield Chorale, we have brass bands, we have so many centres of excellence and the International Festival of Music. Could we have special money for towns like mine that could give a boost to the whole country for the arts?
We have special money, Mr. Speaker, for areas. Mr. Speaker, we have special money for areas across the country because every year the Arts Council has £444 million to spend. It spends a significant amount of that money in music.